This is the moment that designers cherish.
The moment designers love.
It's the moment we bring our clients into the finished product for the very first time.
The moment we show them how it has all come together to create the home of their dreams.
This is the reveal.
Hi, my name is Rob MacNeill. I'm an interior designer in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I'm excited to show you my home. We're here at beautiful Carolee Mills near downtown Raleigh, and it is a cotton mill that was originally built in 1892 and since has been converted into loft apartments. When we moved to Raleigh, we wanted to live in a place that had a sense of history, and a lot of the new constructions in the area just didn't fit the bill. So we found Carolee Mills and immediately knew it was a place that we wanted to live. We love the brick exterior and the beautiful windows on the approach. We love that we live near downtown Raleigh, but we're still on 14 acres of land. When we moved in, the place needed a lot of renovation, but we're really happy with how it turned out, and I'm looking forward to showing you what's inside. Let's go take a look. Welcome to my home. The first thing that you're going to notice as you enter are the super high ceilings, huge windows, and original maple floors from 1892. Nothing about this building was designed to be intentionally beautiful. It was made for industrial purposes. As a cotton mill, you needed lots of light, strong floors, and space that was completely open for large machinery. And it wasn't designed to be a living space at all. It was designed for industry. Raleigh is a booming city, and there's lots of new construction. But when we looked for a place to live, we wanted something that had a sense of history. What we liked most about the space was the openness, as it was intended to be originally. And so when we came in and did some renovations, we took out as many walls as possible. Because the building was not made to be intentionally beautiful, we aren't bound by a previous style here. So we can experiment with all different kinds of design decisions. As soon as you walk into the apartment, you come to what we call the lounge, which is a perfect place for sitting, having a conversation, and listening to music. It's hard to believe that this originally was the only living space in the entire apartment, but as we took down walls, we were able to expand into other spaces as well. A great way to create intimacy in a space is to face two love seats or sofas towards each other, and that's what we did in this space, creating a sense of symmetry below in contrast to the art wall above. Throughout the home, art takes center stage, and this is a great example of that. We have an art wall here that's made up of different kinds of art, different styles, different colors, and different subjects. As a rule of thumb, I like to combine things so that they create a cohesive whole overall, and I don't worry about the individual pieces blending together. The way that we created this wall was to lay the artwork on the floor before the furniture was here, to space it out the way that we thought was appropriate, and then to go ahead and hang the pictures on the wall in this configuration. Things are always changing in the apartment, so this wall never stays exactly the same. As we collect new pieces or rotate out other pieces, it changes constantly. When you hang art throughout your home, you don't have to limit yourself to two-dimensional pieces. And here's a great example. This leg splint, which was designed by Ray and Charles Eames for the World War II effort, they are typically known as furniture designers, but here they use some of the techniques from their furniture manufacturing to create a leg splint. One of the most impactful pieces on the wall is this giant blue painting from an artist living in Berlin. You'll notice that it's not centered on the wall. Again, we wanted to create a sense of asymmetry on this wall so that it looked more dynamic than everything in the room being symmetrical. The strong blue color draws out the same color in the rug. Although the space is wide open, we wanted the spaces to feel intimate, and one way to do that is to create a room within the larger room using an area rug. We did that in this case. And I love using a rug that goes under all the furniture. In a small space, I believe every piece needs to be special. My favorite piece in this room is the multi-tiered coffee table. It allows all sorts of opportunities for styling, whether it's using candles, vases, or books. These custom side tables were made to be thin, so they don't intrude on the pathway from the front door to the kitchen. They're custom made out of marble with a metal base that's been powder coated black. Another one of my favorite things in this room are the lamps. They are vintage from the 1960s and they're made with a yellow lava glaze. I loved how the color tied together with the large sofa in the living room, while at the same time adding all sorts of texture and interest to the space. They're overscaled, which is perfect for the high ceilings. The credenza provides storage, but it also anchors the art wall. You have to have greenery in your space. And this is a great example of a giant bird of paradise that's grown all the way to the ceiling. It's really happy with its southern exposure. And it's one of the first things that people notice when they walk into the space. Just look at it. It's grown all the way to the ceiling, up to 14 feet. Art is one of the most personal things in a home, and this is no exception. I like to collect artwork by people I know or people I've met. In this case, this painting is by my mother, who made it in college after a Picasso. All the art I've used throughout my home is important to me and special in some way. I also like to support local art and artists. And this one with the green background is by a local artist named Ashlyn Browning. I like the way it sings in the space and jives with the Scalamandre tiger pillows on the love seats. Right across from the lounge is our living room. And in order to create this open space, we actually had to take out an entire wall. This space was originally a bedroom, but we wanted it to be a living space because of the huge windows. One of the biggest features of the apartment in general, and certainly of the living room, are these floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. We love the way that books add warmth to a space, and I love reading and collecting books. It's a work in progress. I'm always adding to it. I believe that if you're going to go through the trouble of creating built-ins or bookshelves, you should always go all the way to the ceiling, not only for storage, but also for drama. Since we removed the wall between the lounge and the living room area, we still wanted to divide up the spaces to make them feel intimate and cozy. The way we did that was to use a high back sofa and a tall console to divide the space. The space still feels like one big room, but it also feels cozy. So when you live in a house with cats, you have to worry a lot about them breaking things. And in this case, we went ahead and purchased this beautiful vase, which is actually made of rubber. It's a design by Gaetano Pesce, who is an industrial designer, but works with things that are handmade as well. Because it's rubber, if the cats get to it, it won't break. It's also really cool looking. This room is a great example of how I like to mix patterns and colors. One rule of thumb is to mix small scale patterns with medium or large scale patterns, and to mix geometric patterns with more organic forms. An example is this linear geometric rug mixed with a pillow that has more organic lines. Pattern play doesn't have to be limited to textiles, because this coffee table is an organic shape as well, and I love how it's juxtaposed to the lines not only of the carpet, but the very straight lines of the high back sofa. One of my favorite pieces in this room is this Mies van der Rohe chair, which we recovered in a 70s style crushed velvet. I love the way it's unorthodox. Usually you'll see this chair in maybe a leather or a neutral fabric, but in this case we went with something more fun. I love the way it jives with the nearby painting, which is actually made of wallpaper that's been cut down from a costume shop in Berlin. You can see as you get closer all the layers of wallpaper that had been applied throughout the years. The coffee table in the center of the room is a great example where form meets function. I love the shape of it, and I love the wood veneer, but it's also functional. Each seating area can access it easily. We also recovered this chair in the corner, and I love the way it looks. It started with an inexpensive chair, and then we put on an expensive, luscious fabric. It's a great way to upgrade any style. We chose to use the same light fixture in both the lounge and the living room, tying together this big volume of space. And since the ceilings are so high, we could choose large fixtures to fill the space. Here's a tip: tie things together with pops of color. The lounge and the living room are quite different, but we tied them together by using the same yellow in the lamps of the lounge and the sofa of the living room. There's also coordinating blues and even pops of pink. There are a lot of architectural components of the space that can't be changed. One example is this ledge along the floor, which serves a purpose for a conduit for electricity. But we used it as an art ledge to display additional pieces of artwork that we couldn't fit on the walls. I might describe my style as maximalist, but I spend a lot of time making sure everything is placed intentionally, so everything feels cohesive and uncluttered. We use this space for reading, hanging out with friends, watching TV, but the most amazing thing about it is this beautiful natural light coming through the huge windows. We love the view. We live on this beautiful courtyard that the community shares. And although the courtyard is shared, we feel tucked away in our own oasis. One of our most recent renovations was the kitchen. And as a starting point, we chose this Italian veneer. We loved it so much that we also used it throughout the house on all the interior doors. What's great about this veneer is that it has both black and white in it, tying together the architectural features of the home, from the black beams and windows to the white walls. It was important for us to hide our appliances, and so we did fully integrated appliances wherever possible. For example, this is our refrigerator. And the reason it was important to do this was because we can see our kitchen from almost every vantage point in the house. I can actually see my refrigerator from my bedroom, and we just wanted everything to look seamless and almost like a piece of furniture. Another example of an architectural feature that we couldn't change in the home was this load-bearing column. And instead of trying to avoid it, we embraced it and actually surrounded it by the island. And I think it's pretty cool. Because we're on the first floor and we have neighbors above, we couldn't ventilate upwards from the stove. Our solution was to add a downdraft which ventilates through the crawl space into the outside. And as a bonus, we get more storage above the range. We also wanted to add color to the kitchen, and the way we did that was with this bluish-green backsplash. And we actually matched the paint color of the cabinets above to that backsplash. For the finishes of the plumbing and hardware in the kitchen, we chose a chrome, which is a cool finish that jives really well with the blue-green backsplash and the veneer. And we chose these really chunky pulls for both the drawers and the doors. And I love the way they add a shiny element to the kitchen. It was important to me for the kitchen to look really orderly and symmetrical. And so we balanced the refrigerator on the right with a beverage center on the left. We also centered up the sink in the island with the stove directly across. Directly across from the kitchen is our music nook. It's a smaller scale space, and so we've filled it with smaller scale artworks. One of the cool features of the space is this interior window, which brings light from the living room deeper into the loft. It's actually an original window from the exterior of the building that was repurposed for the interior. It sections off the space from the living room, but at the same time allows light and views through. I chose to paint all the window mullions in this house black, which corresponds to the beams on the ceiling. I love how it lends itself to an industrial look, and it almost looks like a steel frame. So you'll notice this bookshelf, which was here when we moved in, and we kept it, but we haven't put a single book on the shelf. It's a great lesson in styling with other objects. So we have everything from a doctor's bag to some pottery and even a bust. We installed this light fixture above, and I really like the way it gives indirect light instead of harsh down light in the space. A lot of these paintings are by people that I know or friends of mine in this space, so it's a very personal space. There are two paintings in particular that I really love. One is this painting on the right by Daryl Roberts, who's a Chicago artist and friend of mine. And the second is by a street artist actually in Chicago named Janice the Peace Prophet. I love playing the piano. It's a huge stress relief for me. And I knew when we were designing the space that I wanted a dedicated space for the piano. This is where I come at the end of the day to play the piano, to de-stress a little bit, and it's great to have a space that's dedicated to that. Adjacent to the kitchen is the dining area, and the showstopper in this space is the table. The table is a 1970s vintage marble table designed by Carlos Scarpa. I love it because I love his architecture, and it's reminiscent of the style of some of his buildings in Venice. The massive base is made of solid marble, and it has a stepped detail, not unlike some of Carlos Scarpa's architecture. This is an example of something that was worth the wait. I always advise people when they make an investment to wait for the right piece to come along. We found this table at a local vintage shop after being table-less for 4 years, and it fit the space perfectly. The main living spaces of our apartment are really colorful, and in this area, we eased into a more neutral palette. You can see it in the artwork, you can see it in the table, and you can see it in the chairs. We already had the black and white art on the walls, and therefore we were able to work the table in seamlessly. So the light fixture over the table was made in Morocco. It's actually a source from Etsy, but they made it to order in the size that we wanted, and what I love about it is the handmade quality when you look up close. It's actually hand hammered. So a couple of my favorite pieces over here include these portraits of Dolly Parton, which I picked up on eBay. I love collecting fan art of Dolly Parton, and one day I'm going to have a powder room completely full of portraits of her. Another piece that I love in this area is this Tom Burr painting, which is actually a shirt that's been tacked to a wooden background. He is a really great artist and does conceptual works. Finally, another picture that I really like over here is the Imagine piece, because I love Yoko Ono's work, and this is a benefit print that she created for Ukraine. The dining area has become the perfect place to gather, and because of the small scale of the table, we can fit up to 6 people, but it's a very intimate experience. The bedroom is another example of where we took out a wall, again to achieve that sort of lofty, open feel. So the first thing you'll notice when you come into the bedroom is that it's relatively small. We needed to be efficient with space, and so we chose a bed that had integral nightstands. These nightstands weren't big enough to hold lamps, and so we decided to use sconces on the wall instead. I think it's so important to have multiple light sources and layers of lighting in a space. For example, in this space, we have sconces by the bed, a lamp on the dresser, an overhead light, and a floor lamp. The color scheme in this room started with this Moroccan rug that we picked up during our time in Marrakesh. I love the way that these neutral, sort of warm tones play together and create a cozy space. So although it's not exactly the same as the color scheme in the rest of the house, we carried it through in this room to give it its own character. The mood we were trying to achieve in this space is earthy, comfortable, and even cave-like. We don't have any windows in our bedroom. We did that on purpose. We wanted it to be way in the back of the apartment, away from light, where we could sleep really soundly. This is a photograph by a Philadelphia artist named Zoe Strauss. She's one of my favorite photographers, and she made this piece of artwork for us. It was a photograph that she had already taken, but she blew it up to a larger size, so we could almost use it as a headboard above our bed. Probably my most prized possession in my art collection is this photograph by Nan Golden. She actually gifted it to me when I was in college. It's gone with me to every place I've lived ever since. I love Nan Golden's work in general. It tells a story about her era growing up in the 70s and the 80s. And I also love it because it's a fond memory of meeting her, hanging out with her, and being given something so special. The piece on the pedestal is a sculpture from Caproni & Company, which was made from a historic mold of an original Grecian statue. Where we removed the wall to the bedroom, there was a leftover space under the staircase. In an efficient plan like ours, you need to use every last square inch, and so we turned it into a meditation space, which I use for meditation and for reading. I absolutely love the chair. It's a vintage chair that we recovered in an orange boucle fabric. It's actually really comfortable, even if it doesn't look so. And it's just a nice little cozy spot that we're really happy with. As you can see, in a lot of the places in our apartment, we wanted to dedicate spaces to different purposes, and this is just another example of that. You might notice that the ceilings in this area are lower, and that's because we have a guest loft right up the stairs. The unique thing about this steel loft is that it's actually supported from above and not below. The only reason we were able to remove the wall downstairs in the bedroom was because this loft above it hangs from the beams in the ceiling. I really love how this loft looks out over the entire apartment, and because of that, it's the space that the cats love to hang out. In this guest loft, we wanted to create a memorable stay for our friends and family. We started with this amazing Moroccan rug and went from there. This rug actually was originally used in the lounge, and then we also had it in the bedroom and finally brought it up here. It's just an example of moving things around your house until you find just the right spot. In this space, our inspiration for the color scheme was anything goes. The rug doesn't match the chair, which doesn't match the blanket, which doesn't match the bedding. And that's okay, because all of it comes together in an exciting way. When you're up here, it's hard to not notice the bright red sprinkler pipes throughout, and it's just another example of something that was existing here and that we've embraced as part of the design. On the side tables, we have these piccolo lamps, which are really cool because they're made with a beanbag as a base and can be angled in any direction. There's not a lot of privacy up here, and so the people who come to stay with us have to be really good friends or family. And although there's not a lot of privacy up here, we've still created a cozy, inviting space for our guests. Thank you for coming out to see my space today. I spent the last 4 years making this space really special, and it was great to share it with you. I hope you enjoyed it.